Pete Wright, and I'm here with Megan Strand.
Hey!
And Dane Christensen.
Hello!
We are the Naked Marketers, and thank you so much for joining us this shiny January day. We have a lot of fun things to talk about. It's a little bit awkward because we're actually, for the first time, looking at each other while we're doing this show. We may or may not actually see video. We're trying video. You may not benefit from it, but if there are any awkward silences throughout the show, it's because probably because Dane's gone into his bobblehead impression, and nobody knows how to deal with that effectively. But we have a bunch of stories, and most of them tend to be about Starbucks. So let's start with Starbucks. They've had some big news over the last several weeks. They launched this year their brand new branding announcement. What do you think about the new Starbucks brand, Megan?
For those of you who can't see what I'm doing,
Video's way more fun.
Video is way more fun.
For those of you who can't see what I'm doing, I'm just making that was my mermaid hair impression.
Well, do it one more time because your video froze for me, and I don't think I recorded it. Do it again, mermaid impression. Go ahead. Cue mermaid impression now.
That reminds me of Wayne's World Time Warp.
It totally does. Or the awkward fairy. The mermaid hair hasn't changed. What do you have against mermaid fashion?
I don't have anything against it. I like it.
You like the new brand?
I like it much better than the Gap logo.
Right. It's sort of a compare and contrast story. The Gap logo. Sort of it is. Dane, what do you think of the new story? Do you drink the coffee? Do you drink the coffee from the Starbucks?
I've been known to on occasion, but you know what I'm thinking right now in my head is I'm trying to anticipate jokes because there's a delay in the video, so I'm going to try and laugh and because you're going to get a delay. If I think Pete's about to say something funny, I'll probably laugh earlier than you say it, just so that it works, so it synchronizes. Yeah, how about the new 30-ouncer? What is it, 31-ounce?
The Trenta?
The Trenta.
I saw a great...
that's gross.
A terrific comparison of the Trenta to the human stomach.
I saw that.
Oh. Well,
yes, we all saw it.
Aren't you big shots? And so, why? What don't you think? Is there anything wrong with the Trenta? You are totally getting us off track. We're talking about the brand.
Isn't that part of the brand? Wasn't it announced in the same week? I mean, isn't it all part of the same thing? It's a whole rebranding to
well,
people with bigger stomachs.
What they're trying to do is
yeah, right.
Well, I don't know. Is it? They're doing this very consumer friendly brand update. They raise their prices and then introduce larger drinks at even more expensive prices. So pretty much take away two of these fingers, and you'll see how Starbucks feels about the consumer. No, I take that back. I love Starbucks.
So are we to assume then that their efforts when the recession started just weren't successful? You know, they went to remember you could get a refill before 3 p.m. and I think they were going to smaller drinks and they were or smaller sizes and more economical purchases. They were very concerned about all that. What, 2 years ago? That's completely just flipped now, right?
I don't know. I mean, is it because they were not successful or just because their strategy has evolved?
Well, you're forgetting also about McDonald's and the fact that McDonald's has become a large player in the coffee market because they produce pretty darn decent coffee by consumer standards for much cheaper than Starbucks. So I think that's the other reason Starbucks was doing that. So now they decided to get out of the price wars and just increase their costs and dump. How much do you think they spent on that logo rebrand?
I don't know. More than just the eraser that it takes to take the name off. I mean, 32 cents. More than 32 cents.
Hey, it's a redesign. Well, it's not just taking the name off.
Go back. Take a step back in
different.
Time. Take a step back in time to 2 minutes ago when we first asked, "What do you think of the new logo?" What do you actually think of the new logo? Do you think it was good to get rid of the name and the logo? Are you just going to think about it for a little while?
Ask Megan about
Maybe.
that.
Megan, what do you think about the? What do
I
you
already
think about
told
the?
you. I did
No,
my I did mermaid
you
hair.
did mermaid
version.
hair, but do you think it's the big question is? Do you think it was important to get rid of the? Well, there are two things I think that happened. The first one is Starbucks coffee is off the logo itself, which has been there for the last 40 years. Now that's gone.
Right.
And the second is I think now it's just Starbucks. It's not Starbucks coffee. The company
Right,
is
because they're
doing
going
a
to be
name
exploring
change.
business models.
Right, right.
Yep.
Which we sort of saw coming for the last 10 years. They've been in heavily in tchotchke production, device production, and media in becoming a publishing organization.
But aren't they talking about potentially selling alcohol at some of their not only coffee stores in the future?
I had not heard about this, but now you have me.
I did
now
hear
you
that.
have me. Let us ask.
You're not going to buy alcohol from something that says Starbucks coffee on it.
And they already sell a lot more than coffee, but I don't know. I mean, when you walk into a Starbucks, obviously it's just packed floor to ceiling with all kinds of things. But you still go there because it's a coffee shop. I think this is curious.
Right. The Street has a article on this very story that drink offerings at your local Starbucks may soon include beer and wine, looking to start selling regional wine and beer and a selection of local cheeses served on China tableware.
You know what we need? People? This is what we need. We need vending machines with beer like they have in Europe, because why don't we have those here?
That's a good question.
I think I would say MAD and PTA probably the top two reasons.
You think that
I'm guessing
with that?
Oh, does that have something to do with it? Okay.
I'm glad we could drill down on that one.
I like the new Starbucks logo. I think it's
You don't think the name? You think the
it's
name
attractive.
took 40 years to get to the
name.
The absolute
I don't know.
recognizable.
And to me, I don't have scientific explanation for why I like it, but I know I hated the Gap logo redo.
Okay,
And,
let's talk about the Gap though. Let's talk about how this compares to the Gap logo.
Yeah.
Do you have
Sorry,
an audience?
I'm saying goodbye to somebody.
This is a live show at your house. No, you
have to show us the person you're talking to.
I can't. They just left.
So the real issue is I totally lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
The real issue is it's about we were talking about the Gap
logo
versus Starbucks. Gap hemmed and hawed. Executives came out completely wishy-washy, saying, "No, we didn't mean it. We take it back. We don't like it either. It's just what the agency came up with. We thought we had to use it," kind of a message. Starbucks.
We're so grateful for your input.
Yeah, we're so grateful for your input. Right, we're going to try this again in 6 months when hopefully you forget. And versus Starbucks, which came out with a logo that totally affected people, and we'll talk about that effect in just a second. And their response from the corporation was, "Stay tuned. We hope you get used to it." Is that better or worse?
It's better.
I think it's better because they didn't oops. Actually, we want it to be crowdsourced. This is just one idea. I mean, it just made it look silly that they completely backtracked on it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if you're gonna
do a new logo, people are gonna be all hackled about it, especially if it's a long-standing brand that is part of their daily life. I mean, not everyone's gonna be hacked about it, but you're gonna get people that don't agree.
If they would have altered or removed the woman part of the logo, which is now the entire logo, I think people would have been upset. The fact it looks this new
if
logo.
If it was a green square.
Well,
with like an
Starbucks
in the
with
corner.
a green square over it. That's right.
It's such a cool logo. I mean, that's such a, I don't know where that woman comes from or what that's all about, but it gives it a very cool kind of vibe. And I think if you were to do away with that and try to emphasize the name of the company or the I don't know, the font or whatever, and do away with that, I do think people would be upset. I think this looks more like, okay, Starbucks, you're putting a whole lot of faith in the recognition people have for this symbol, and you're removing your name, which I think might be a curious decision for you, but that's your decision, and I don't care whether or not I see the word Starbucks. But I'd probably be disappointed if they removed the woman. I personally would be.
Well, that's I really like it. I think the cups are classy. I think it resonates with people. Lord knows I'm in Starbucks every day anyway. And I don't know. Does this do anything to create? I mean, we talked several weeks ago about how Starbucks is the new national average coffee.
We did.
That
we talked
Starbucks
about that.
is
Yeah,
average. Right. Does this do anything to improve the perception of Starbucks as average coffee?
I don't think it changes that. I think Megan's probably onto something with, if they're going to start introducing wine and beer, for instance.
On China.
On China, not in China.
And you guys have,
else there.
I mean, you're in Coffee Shop Central up there. Is that not uncommon for you guys to see local coffee shops that have beer and wine also available? You've seen that before, right?
They're not usually coffee shops, though.
Yeah,
I mean, they might be like small
kind of
small places.
I noticed one like a month ago, and I thought, wow, so you're a coffee shop, and you also have beer and wine. It's very interesting. That's interesting.
When you were here, not in Utah.
No, in Salt Lake.
In Salt Lake.
Place in Salt Lake, yeah.
Coffee, beer, and wine in the same place in Salt Lake.
And I think they had like sandwiches that you could get, but no one was ordering them, and they had...
but no one was ordering.
Well, yeah, it's a coffee shop. Like it was a real coffee shop. They had pastries and stuff. I mean, so it's really not that different than what Starbucks offers from sort of a total. But they had beer and wine, and I just thought that's kind of cool. I guess. I mean, it's sort of like extends the hours a little later, maybe because maybe not.
Yep.
Not everybody wants coffee late at night, but they want to go to a coffee shop.
It's interesting. I wonder what that'll do to the stores that are open most of the night. We have right up the street. There's a store that is open until 2 in the morning and opens again at 5.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they'll be serving liquor that late. Interesting. And Dan, you brought up a question about the siren, and there is a post over at Starbucks.com on their blog introducing the new brand about the history of the siren, and it's it's kind of interesting. So here it is for those who want to look at it. We'll post that in the show notes. Other Starbucks news. The big news for me is that you can now finally, all over the country, pay for your coffee with your phone. If you have, I believe, if you have a BlackBerry or an iPhone, you can actually use the scan to pay in the mobile phone app, and it works great. You just touch to pay, and it introduces this handy little code, this little key code here, and then you are paid. They scan it, and you're all set, and it updates your balance instantly. It really is a fascinating thing. I can't believe.
But it saves you no money, right?
It saves you absolutely no money, except for the fact that if you reload your card today while supplies last, and you use a Visa card to do it, Visa gives you $5. For free, they just add $5 to the value of your card.
That's
really?
Like half the cost of the new Trenta.
That
What's
is
it called?
The Trenta. Half the cost of the new Trenta. That's right. So you get actually a grande. You get a grande coffee on Visa. So
the markup is it's just genius. How
it is.
The markup is so huge.
It is genius. What?
Is a dog?
Is that our guest for the day?
Sorry,
that's your blind deaf dog.
Anyway,
okay,
tell us about Lexus, Peter.
This was I just think this is interesting. First of all, Lexus, fancy cars. Love Lexus. They have this new ad, The Hard Way, and if you visit Lexus.com/The Hard Way, you will see all sorts of video assets they created. The commercial itself that this whole thing is centered around is really to showcase how rugged the new Lexus cars are. And so they took these 16 Lexus cars and they trussed them up together and hung them from a giant construction crane. And they hang very well. I don't know what else are you going to say about 16 cars hanging from a construction crane. But what you get with this video on The Hard Way is a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff about how they created this video. And you know what? There's a lot more that goes into hanging 16 cars from each other on a construction crane.
You could have a Discovery show just about that.
You totally could. And I thought it was fascinating. I watched the commercial once, but I really I really poured into the behind the scenes stuff, and I think there's a message in that. I think people sort of. It's funny how DVDs taught us to expect supplementary material when we rent movies. That the DVDs that we rent, we really, for those of us who are interested in the story behind the story, we really are kind of pouring into the actors' stories, the producer stories, the writers. And there is just wonderful, rich content on most DVDs that come out. Now we get that same sort of treatment for commercials. And you know what? I think the stories are just as interesting when you look at how they produce some of the content they produced.
Well, it almost reminds me a little bit of the Domino's campaign that they had running for a while, and it was partially consumer driven, but they kind of took you into the kitchen of a Domino's because it was remember it was that show me your pizza campaign, and if there was something wrong with your pizza, you could report it and take pictures of it. And they had all these scenes of them in the kitchen, getting this feedback and, getting all upset about it. It shouldn't be like that. The cheese shouldn't stick to the thing. What's going on? It just reminds me a little bit of that. And I think you're right. I think it's part of that transparency piece that is resonating so well with consumers now that, they want to know, they don't want just the shiny front. They want to know what.
That was weird, right, Pete?
What? That something just froze?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Flash's fault. I pulled up this website that has a Flash video. Oh, no. And she just disappeared. Oh,
you know what I was thinking, just to fill time here while we lost Megan, is that now that we're doing video, we can do product placement.
Why are you showing us your Vaseline, Dave?
It's the only label I have on my desk.
That's the only label you have on your desk is Vaseline.
At Chipotle.
That's telling.
It's dry here in the winter.
Well, until Megan comes back to us, I just think this was interesting because because really the behind the scenes stuff is becoming just as important, if not way more so, than the rest of the campaign. Do you agree?
Honestly, I hadn't thought about it until this conversation. I think, though, that I think the logic is. I think the statement you're making is very logical. I think that the idea that that we expect to get information and that we want and are. The thing is to take a real effort in a commercial campaign to go behind the scenes assumes that the people who actually are going to go behind the scenes are maybe a little closer to your customer, right? Because otherwise, why would you care? And that's not always the case. If it's an interesting campaign, but a product you're never going to buy, sure, you'll go behind the scenes, I guess. But I think in a lot of cases, if you take that extra time to sort of expand a campaign and allow people sort of, layers to get through, then I think you would make the assumption the people who are going to go there are the people who are maybe more likely to be your customer, and that's a good thing. And it's one thing to target your media buy or the creative to the people you think are most likely to purchase the product. But once you've got them, how do you keep them interested? And this is a really good way to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think because all of us love to have secrets. And this sort of plays into that. We'd love to be able to sit down with somebody at coffee and say, "Hey, did you see that new commercial? Well, I know something about that you might find interesting that you may not know. This is the sort of insider information that I have as a result of these great things." I think people are drawn to the behind the scenes stuff because it lets us have a more intimate relationship with the process, even if it's not necessarily the product, or I should say, by extension of that intimacy with the process, we develop new intimacy with the product. I think that's interesting.
Now, from a video perspective, Pete, you are now frozen.
Oh.
I can still hear you, though.
Yeah, I can hear you.
And maybe it's just my machine.
Megan, are you here?
I'm here.
I can't see you.
Yeah, we can't
I can see
Megan.
myself.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So video has proven to work very well so far. I think.
Awesome.
I think we're off to an excellent start.
I'm guessing, Megan, are you in a wireless network or are you plugged in?
No, I'm wireless.
Yeah.
You think that's why?
I think that's why.
Yeah.
But that is okay. We soldier on because we have just a couple more things to talk about, and then we're out of here. And I think the next thing to talk about, you want to talk about Sundance, yeah?
Yes. And I wanted to say that it's a conversation that I think should be continued because Sundance starts today officially, and I was in Park City yesterday, and it just reminds you every year of all the unexpected ways that products end up in that town to market themselves. That kind of a festival is just a perfect sort of petri dish, I guess, for market experimentation for big brands to do things that are a little bit out of the norm for them, and for for really brave entrepreneurial companies and filmmakers to show up and really think outside the box. So Sundance starts today.
I think it's funny that filmmakers was the last thing on your list.
No,
it's a great place for big brands and people and chefs and plumbers and the occasional blacksmith will actually show up, and also filmmakers from time to time.
Isn't that and kind of sad, I guess?
That
but
is very sad.
No, I would have said. I mean, I was working at a hotel in Park City the year that Trent Harris and Matt Stone got their first film, Cannibal the Musical, was rejected by Sundance.
Trey Parker.
What did I say? Trent Stone.
Trent Harris.
He's a local. Trey Parker. Wow. Yeah. Trent Harris, also a filmmaker. Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Yeah, they got their film rejected by Sundance, and they came. The festival had started, and they came running in. I was in the group sales office, and they're like, "Hey, we need a meeting room. We need one of your rooms." And of course, nobody knew who they were. And they rented one of our ballrooms and a projector and a screen, and pulled people off the street. And we were not on Main Street. We were, in Park City, but out of the way a little bit. But that was it. And that was there. So yeah, I mean, and you would call that, in fact, Slam Dance was started the same way. I can't remember which film had been rejected, but somebody's film had been rejected. And they basically, during the film festival, had started their own alternate festival. And there was a lot of, guerrilla tactics, pulling people in, and a lot of people do hats and shirts, and that still happens all the time. But that was, I mean, obviously it was the filmmakers that you really paid attention to, and a lot of other alternate film festivals get started. There's Skin Dance and X Dance, and people in the past have actually used a pile of snow or a wall in a public place, and they'll still do this. This is now illegal. Like Park City Town rules, but people will do mobile film festivals where they just pull up someplace and project and hope people show up.
They're showing their wares, their new films that maybe didn't get prime screening at in the festival.
It's been alternate festivals that get the most attention, but there are filmmakers who will do really interesting things. But it's become so commercial in the last, I don't know how many years. I mean, it's just insane. It really got worse before this recession. It wasn't quite so bad last year, but it's so in your face, all of the products that show up in town. And yesterday, when I was driving into Park City, I saw the official car of Sundance. There's always an official car, and I think it was an Acura SUV. And so that's, they drive all around town. But then now there are other cars that show up that have no relation to the film festival. And actually, Audi was the one I saw yesterday. Very, very nice new, like, all-wheel drive sedan. They were like three of them in a row driving down the street, and they've, on the side announced the kind of car they are. And they'll just be driving around town all week long. And I think people really overestimate the value of the audience that might see them during that festival, but it happens every year. It's the nuttiest thing.
Well, it sort of compares to, we'll say, as you brought all this up, both Bing and Google, YouTube have some pretty significant, sounds like pretty significant partnerships with Sundance right now. Yeah.
They're just two that. Yeah, I mean, there's always some sort of technology partner. I mean, HP is always a big one, and Adobe has been a big one for a while. I think this is a little, and Bing was at least last year, I think for the last 2 years, and Bing will do a house on Main Street where it's kind of, by invite only, VIP, cool party place. YouTube, I think this is their first year. I noticed also that Koala, I think, has nothing to do with Sundance, but is having a presence there with an Airstream trailer that they're trying to sort of roam around town and make a game out of their presence there. So again, yeah, it starts today. It's easier today to know who are the official sponsors, like Bing and YouTube, who try to integrate themselves into the festival in some way. YouTube has 2 Sundance channels on YouTube. I think that makes sense and is good. Bing, I don't quite know how it relates to a film festival, but or how they're integrating their message.
Well, it's their Bing videos. I mean, they have a whole Bing entertainment division. I'm on the landing page right now, and it's they've got a lot. They've got Olivia Munn from G4 Tech TV, I think, is and she is going around interviewing everybody. Yeah, no, that's right. Daily Show, that's right. And so she is the official hostess, and they've got loads of videos on bing.com/videos about Sundance.
Well, so now we know. And I would say, then I didn't know that this year. Then maybe it makes more sense, because honestly, early on, because Bing was there last year, and I think it was like, wow, I don't get the relation, and I never did. So that makes sense. But really, like, it's the thing that's so interesting to me, and so we can talk about this next week after I've been up there a couple of days, but just the stuff that shows up. I've got a friend that is an actor that gets into some of the gifting houses, and I've seen just piles of just the craziest products that you'll probably never see. Candles and bottles of water and kinds of like herbal tea, and of course jeans, and just products that
you're right. Those things are just crazy. I would never imagine seeing those.
Water, jeans.
No, water
these,
like
at Sundance, they're diamond encrusted.
Yeah, exactly. They come in packaging that makes no sense from a practical standpoint.
All right, well, take lots of pictures of all of this impractical jeanware, and we will share the stories next time. Please.
I'm gonna update you.
All right.
So get excited.
What do you? We were talking a little bit before the show about CES. Do you actually remember anything about CES?
Can I tell you the only thing I know?
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's apparently the Windows tablet's not getting great reviews. Just I guess it got a nice warm reception at CES, but the critical reviews are, wow, Windows really was never made to be a tablet operating system. So
that is the thing you remember from CES. I think is pretty telling. This is, I mean, it was, I think about this in the context of what you were talking about with Sundance, that it's so brand heavy. And, CES was the Consumer Electronics Show this year was so massive. Thousands and thousands and thousands of exhibitors, 15,000 or 5,000 journalists, I think, 130,000 attendees in this city of convention halls, and yet what messages stuck. And so I sort of wonder, are these big trade shows, are these big events, sort of dinosaurs? Do you need them?
Well, okay, so let's compare it to Sundance, right? I mean, so what I'm talking about is sort of this undercurrent that happens at Sundance that you may or may not ever hear about.
That's a different animal because it exists for a different reason.
But at the same time, there are movies that go from nowhere to Oscar nomination through Sundance, right? So the hope is that people get in and get, the big mainstream exposure. But the bigger stories from, I guess, an industry or a festival goer's perspective are a lot of the undercurrent things that don't quite make maybe the mainstream press. So it's a vehicle that I think in the same way CES is still, brands like Microsoft and other brands, I guess, they hope to be able to further their the brand awareness or new product announcements. And there are, smaller technology companies that I think hope to pick up, some sort of press recognition that they wouldn't get, at home in their office. They might get it at CES because there's so much press in attendance. But I think, Pete, what is sort of concerning, I guess, or disconcerting or whatever about CES is it, and it's not that it's necessarily any larger than it used to be, but the impact is weak, and so the amount of people or companies hoping to get attention becomes so diluted at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or at the end of the show. It's just diluted.
Well, I think that's really, I think that's the interesting thing. I think that those, it's an interesting contrast that at CES now, it's almost the worst time of year to make any announcement, where, maybe there's, at one of these other conventions like Sundance, if you have a film-related announcement, it is still a pretty good year, as long as you're at Sundance.
But is the purpose of CES to get press attention more than anything else?
It's a consumer show. It is a consumer show. It's not like it's not a well, I think a lot of industry type stuff is going on. A lot of industry dealing is going on at CES. It really is designed to get consumers excited about products that are coming soon. So, all right.
Well,
we just talk about it because it's we didn't talk about it. We haven't been around each other for a while, and so.
Well, and I think what we're hoping to really get into in this show on a weekly basis, a little more in depth, I guess, or a little more focused, is kind of the way that companies, not so much guerrilla tactics per se, but experimentation and things companies do. Whether it's a new company launching, taking risks, things that might go down in history as really amazing successes or failures, and may be considered in many cases experimental or again risk taking. So when you look at the Sundance Film Festival, it's just full of that. CES doesn't seem to be.
Well, I don't know about that. There's a lot of
I don't know either because I wasn't there.
Risky stuff, but I think the most risky stuff is the booth babery.
Yes, I don't know about risk. I'd call that not a risk.
Risque stuff.
That's risque.
It's risque stuff.
And it's a tactic.
I think it's a tactic. It was we were talking a little bit about driving attention, and it turns out, and I've been struggling to find the story about the booth babes. There was a great little story about one of the journalists who was trying to find out more about the booth babe process, and it turns out I'm going to struggle with this, so bear with me. It turns out that there is a hotline at Penthouse that you can call if you are an exhibitor at a trade show, and you can say, I need a half a dozen booth babes to work my event, and they need to be able to talk about video games and voice over IP telephony and
and meth addiction,
silicon and meth. And interestingly, there is a whole sort of cadre of Penthouse subjects that are able to talk about all of those things, and they will just show up at your booth that day. It's like a little union you can call on to come work your booth, so to speak. And I think that is
gaffers, grips, and booth babes.
Really, there are booth babes that can talk about IP telephony.
That's the thing.
Yes, that's the thing. It blew my mind too.
But the attendees of CES have always been targets for like the porn industry and I mean, what is it, 80-90% male convention. So yeah, I mean, that's why I said it's probably not super risky to hire booth babes for your booth.
Well, it's
a lot of men at the CES show.
Right. This is the first article that I found was our friend John Berquist on the Huffington Post talking about what do you want to be remembered for, your booth babes or your product announcement, and I guess my counter to that was, as long as nobody's going to remember your product announcement anyway.
At least give them a pleasant experience.
I'm just saying. All right, enough out of.
No, he makes a great point, and that's when you start talking about like, we need to get attention. How do we get attention? How do we stand out? And someone, babes.
I got an idea.
Babes.
Yeah,
babes. I mean,
it's an original one.
Right.
All of a sudden, all of a sudden your actual message is lost, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it makes a great point.
That is a very good point. Do we have anything else that is critically important that we want to talk about today?
I wouldn't say critically, no.
Mildly. Let's go mildly then. Let's lower the bar and see if anything else slides through.
I'm
I don't
not
think we
gonna-
do. I don't think we do. So let's go around the horn, as it were. Megan, where can people find you? Sitting very still on your couch,
Just like you.
because you're completely frozen.
I know you're frozen too. You can find me on Twitter at Megan Strand, or my blog and website encouraged.com, which is INCOURAGED.
Excellent. Dane Christensen.
About.me/Dane Christensen. That's DANE as in great Dane Christensen. With an EN. As in the Danish form
The
of
Dane,
Christensen.
as in the Great Dane Christensen.
It makes perfect sense.
It doesn't.
In your head.
I'm Pete Wright, and you can find me at about.me/Pete Wright, and you can find out all you want about the show at thenakedmarketers.com. See, now this is a lesson learned. I should have that up. thenakedmarketers.com. You can go to the site and you can
Talk
hang
about
out
product
there,
placement.
and you can look at other shows and pictures of great people that have joined us, and you can go to the iTunes link there, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes. There's so many things you can do if you would just go to the site. Subscribe to the show on iTunes. It really is the best way you can ensure you don't miss a single episode of Naked Marketing Goodness. On behalf of Megan Strand, Dane Christensen, Vaseline, and me, Pete Wright, this has been Naked Marketers. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.